Hi, I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and welcome to the Joy CEO podcast. I am so glad you're here. Today, I want to start by asking you something. I want you to really sit with this question. Is there a room at work that you have not yet been in? A boardroom, an executive meeting, a secret circle where all the decisions are made, the high stakes presentation where the real decisions are made, a seat at a table where people around you would just see your brilliance and know the contributions you make to the organization, not just the tactical deliverables you make on a daily basis, a room where you would finally be visible in a way that you know deep down you are so ready to be seen. If something came to mind, hold on to it because we are absolutely circling back to it in this episode. Because today we are talking about that room, what it does to you when you actually get into it, and what it quietly costs you when you're not in it, and what has to shift in you before you'll actually let yourself walk into that sort of a room. I just got back from Nashville. I've been talking about it here on the pod and on my social media, and it was a room that stretched me. And I really think I've been really transparent with you about that so that you know, like I had butterflies. I had this whole moment with Gary, the bellman at the Conrad Hotel in Nashville. And, this room for me was this retreat, but I know what it's like from my corporate life to get into those high stakes rooms. I know what it's like to get into a room where you're leading $1 billion business and you're having to report on that business to very senior level executives. And so I want to talk to you about that today and how we transform as women, as leaders, when we have a seat at those tables. So if you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found this podcast, this community, this group of women leaders. And to my people who keep showing up week after week, I just love you. Thank you for coming back with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today, by the end of this episode, you are going to walk away with 3 things. 1, why getting into these high stakes rooms at work is the most underrated career move that you can actually make. What it will do for your confidence, your visibility, and your belief in what is possible for you. That is the unlock. Number 2, why keeping you outside of the rooms you belong in is really a deterrent. And I'm going to tell you, it is probably not what you think it is. And number 3, the shift you need to make now in how you see yourself, how you show up before any of those doors are going to open for you. Let's get to it. Okay. So you know the room that I'm talking about. Maybe it's the executive strategy meeting that you're always briefed on, but you never actually are allowed in. Maybe it's the leadership offsite where all of the fancy executives go, where the real vision and the real KPIs of the company are determined and decided. And you always find out about it after the fact. Maybe it's the board presentation where someone else is carrying your ideas into the meeting and representing you. Maybe it's a customer meeting and it's really highly visible and it's a project you've been working on behind the scenes and you don't actually get to represent your ideas to the customer. Maybe it's something cross-functional or a conversation happening 2 levels above you, but you're absolutely qualified to be a part of the conversation. You know the room. You have been circling it. Here's what I want to say to you right now before we go any further. You are not circling that room because you're not ready. You're circling it because nobody told you that you were allowed to want it and what it took to actually access it. So that it is absolutely permissible for you to position yourself to be in that room. that advocating for your own seat is not boastful, it is not arrogant, it is leadership. And getting in the room is not about luck. It is not about waiting to be discovered. It is actually a strategy, a career strategy. And it is one that women who are already in those rooms have actually figured out. Usually not because someone handed them a seat or tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, I think you'd be great at this, but actually because they were done waiting for the invite that was never going to come their way. Okay, so let me tell you what I observed on this Nashville trip and how I want to translate this into what you might be going through about getting into one of these high stakes rooms. I was in a room with 13 other entrepreneurs, and it was led by a woman named Julie Solomon, someone who's built an 8-figure coaching practice. She's brilliant. She's dynamic. She's also very warm and heartfelt, and she hugs you when you walk into the room, which totally speaks to my love language when somebody hugs me. But she doesn't talk about it was so easy and I just snapped my fingers or waved a magic wand and all of a sudden, I just had the successful business. No, she talks about she's done some hard work. And the women in that room were significantly further along than me, which is why I put myself in that room. Some of them have massive platforms, massive followings, thriving businesses, audience that honestly I dream about. But there was a moment when I could feel the gap between me and them, when my brain started to catalog like all the things I haven't done yet that they have done. And I want you to notice something about that feeling, because I'm sure you felt it too. You get into a room and you start comparing yourself to other people, and everyone around the table seems a little bit more certain than you, or they know how these meetings operate. So they're more confident because they've done it before. But here's the thing. In a room where people are dropping all these numbers and they're making all these decisions and they're throwing out all these ideas, it's not that we don't belong in those meetings. It's just that we are new at being in those meetings. And so we are learning. And the only way you can learn is to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's going to take a minute, because that's how we get to grow. So here's what I saw in Nashville. Every single woman who was sitting in the room, all of them who were further along than me, was in that room to figure something out. She didn't have it all figured out. She was there to learn something new about her business. They hadn't stopped investing in their own growth just because they were succeeding. No, they paid the same amount of money I did to get into that room to learn something that they needed for their business. And they were in the room precisely because they take themselves and their businesses seriously. And they put their money where their mouth is. And that's what getting into these high rooms at work does for you. Your baseline will move. When you're in rooms where big decisions get made, it grows your thinking. It grows all of the optics that you have. You start seeing things in a much bigger perspective. You see the strategies, you see the whys, you start to understand why some of the tactical things that have been asked of you fit together in a much bigger picture. And that really grows you as a leader. And so what would have felt daunting in the beginning will start to feel like you're growing into the leaders who have been at the table for a longer time than you. You will become visible in a new way. And so when you leave that room and you go back to your division, your group, your team, you're going to lead differently. And it's not just as like a brilliant executor or a brilliant manager or a brilliant team lead, but as someone who's going to think at the level of the organization's future. And that is a game changer. That is different than who you were before you ever got into that room. And those are the sorts of things that can't necessarily happen outside of those rooms. And trust me, I know this from personal experience. You will learn things that can't be taught. They can really only be experienced. And it gives you an opportunity to watch other senior leaders act and respond, to hear questions and answer them, and to gauge how they're thinking. And to see that played out in real life really changes your own perspective. It changes how you respond back to your own team. And it's critical for your growth and your development, your own composure as a leader. So I really want you to think about it. You'll learn things like how those senior leaders hold the room, how they pause before they respond, how they are able to ask questions, clarifying questions, and how they're able to make much more strategic, high-level decisions as opposed to what might feel sometimes as like an erratic or anxiety-filled impulse decision. And that is what grows us as leaders. When you're in those rooms too, and this cannot be understated, you build relationships. And those relationships open doors because they have real substance. Those opportunities don't necessarily come through job applications. They come through human connection. And relationships really are the key to unlocking almost every door in life. People can advocate for you if they know you, if they work with you, if they hear your thoughts, hear how you're approaching the business. They can sponsor you. They can bring your name up in rooms that you're not yet in. You can meet them in the rooms that you're brave enough to go into now. And that is such an advantage to your career. And as we move along in the episode, I really want to talk about what I walked away with in Nashville. And I'm sharing it because it belongs to you as well. It's this realization that it's easy to present the most polished version of ourselves, the best version, and quietly protect the kind of in progress, girl version of ourselves that's still figuring things out. Now, I try to be pretty honest with you and the women I coach, like that this has been hard and this is a work in progress. But it's easy when you're leading a team to want to project that the reason you're leading a team is because you've figured things out. But this woman, Julie, who led this retreat in Nashville, was really clear that she built something from nothing. And she brought in this guest speaker who is a publisher of books and specifically female authors. And she gave this version of like, do you want to hear the story of the woman who had such a perfect life and accomplished everything and lived happily ever after? Or do you want to hear the disastrous version of her life and how she overcame and went on to triumph something really difficult? And of course, we were all like, yeah, give us the juicy side. Tell us the stuff she overcame. Tell us how she overcame it. We all want to know that. I think that's why everybody's so attracted to Mel Robbins. I mean, for a million other reasons too, right? But she tells you that she was $800,000 in debt and that she overcame it. We don't want to know just the polished versions. So you might ask though, like what's appropriate to share in a corporate environment and what's not? And I'll just say that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all the answers. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. You can just be real. You can just be you and be authentic. The one who has navigated life, you've navigated some hard things, you've taken chances to get where you are today. You've sat across from the difficult executive. You've probably had the difficult manager, and you've held your ground, and you're still standing at the end of the day. So ground yourself in that version of you and let more and more of her be seen, because that version of you is very relatable. And that version of you is likely to be welcomed, as opposed to that version of you being a liability. She just may be your greatest asset. And here's a little bit more truth. When you get into those high stakes rooms, the people already in them are not looking at somebody who's perfect and performs perfectly. They're looking for somebody who actually has something to contribute. That's the truth. Somebody who thinks differently and who will bring a perspective that may challenge the status quo, because that's how disruption and innovation actually can change the trajectory of an organization, especially if the organization is in a bit of a rut or isn't quite sure what direction to go in, or sales are slumping, or outside influences are affecting the bottom line. Disruption can be helpful. Okay, so let me ask you the same question that the room asked me. What version of yourself have you been presenting at work? And what version have you been protecting? And if you weren't afraid, is there a version of you that you would share a little bit more freely? Let's talk honestly about what keeps brilliant women outside the rooms they belong in, because it's rarely what you think. It's usually not a skills gap, not even a networking gap, because we know how to network like a freaking boss, though we tell ourselves that we don't have the connections or we don't know the who or what have you. It's really a permission gap. It's giving ourselves permission. It's a voice inside you that says, I'm not ready. I can't do that until I do this. And that's the lie. If you're waiting until you're more experienced, if you're waiting until you prove yourself a little bit more, if you're waiting until someone notices you and extends an invitation, well, you could be waiting away the best years of your career. In the meanwhile, the invitation is not coming. It's up to you to seize the moment. So don't think it has anything to do with you being ready or not. It's whether or not you're raising your hand and advocating for yourself. Are you speaking up? Are you being bold? Are you making it known that you're ready, that you want to be in the room, that you want the next level promotion? And here's why you're ready for it. Someone in the room has to know that you want to be there. And that's on you to tell them. Critical differentiation. So the move is yours to make. And it might look like asking your manager directly. It might look like that in your monthly one-on-ones or quarterly one-on-ones, however you do that. And what would it take? What would it take for you to start volunteering to be in one of those high stakes meetings? Maybe your boss is going to be away on vacation and you could be the sub in. Maybe it might look like building a relationship with somebody else who's already in a different meeting. Maybe it could be a project that you get assigned to. It might look like investing in a program or a coach or a retreat or a space where the level of conversation expands you and challenges you and broadens your thinking to an entirely different level that is beyond your current thinking, so that you are ready to arrive and ask for more, do more, be more. I wish I had had a coach when I was back in my corporate life. It really is one regret I feel, because I really didn't know about coaching until after I left my corporate job. But I think I would have been a much better leader had I had a coach. And I share that just so transparently and honestly. I feel like I did get into some of those rooms, but I had some blind spots and I could have really worked through them much more easily had somebody been coaching me and telling me like, hey, your swing's a little off here, your stance is a little off there. Why don't you hold the bat a little bit differently? And hold on, you got, a fastball coming towards you and you're not paying attention. That would have been really, really helpful. And it would have been worth the investment because I could have improved, my annual raise. I could have improved my bonus by having those performance indicators. So something to think about. I do believe that the women who get into those rooms are not necessarily the most qualified. And I say that because I've been in some of those rooms, but they were decided and they were intentional and they made their aspirations known. And that's what they had going for them. So what are you going to do? And are you ready to make that sort of a decision for yourself? So let's bring this all home. Let's wrap this up. I paid to go to Nashville. I flew there. I sat in a room that stretched me. I felt so out of my league in the beginning. I had butterflies. I had the whole moment with Gary the Bellman. And then I felt something really open up that I hadn't been able to access on my own. It was a permission, a clarity, a new way of seeing what I've been carrying and what it's actually worth. And when I left, I had so much energy and excitement that I couldn't put a price tag on that. So your room might be an executive leadership meeting, the board meeting, the strategic initiative, the project, something that's going to put you in front of people that will significantly change the trajectory of your career. This high visibility access, you've been eyeing it, but you have not yet crossed that threshold. Now is the time. And if you're feeling anything like I felt in my corporate life, or I felt in going on this Nashville trip, like there's a gap, there's a stretch, there is a moment that was going to open up inside of you. You will feel all of that, and it will feel uncomfortable. Your job is to learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because the room will do something for you that you cannot do for yourself. And I cannot stress that enough. It will recalibrate you to believe what is possible. It will show you, not in theory, but in your actual body. You are going to feel it, that you belong there. And once you know that and like really know it, like in your whole nervous system, you're going to never, ever, ever want to go back to playing small. You're going to know things now. You're going to see things now. You're going to befriend people, have mentors that won't want you to ever go back to that. So here is permission from me to you. Stop waiting to feel ready. You may never feel ready. Stop waiting for someone to give you the invitation. The invitation is yours. And stop presenting like this polished version of yourself and protecting the real version of you. Just decide that you are ready and figure out the move that is going to get you closer to it. And make that move, not someday, today, this week, ASAP, because your brilliance and your acumen and your experience, they all deserve a room that is worthy and just waiting for them. So it's time for you to get in the room. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode stirred something in you, if a room came to mind right at the beginning that you cannot stop thinking about, I want you to treat that as information. That is data. Don't let it stay a feeling. Let it become a decision. Take action. Think, decide, act. And if you are navigating what it looks like to lead with more joy, more authenticity, and more of your real self in your corporate space that you're in, this Joy CEO world was meant for you, because that's exactly what we do. Come find us. Come to my website. Until next time, lead with joy. It is your greatest leadership strength. I am so glad to be doing it with you. I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and I will see you next week.